keen to take us live on YouTube and Facebook. A very warm welcome to all you wonderful viewers of Universal Mentors Association's second Digital Education Summit and Awards 2022. We are moving towards the fag end of our summit while discussing some really important topics, pertaining to the education sector. Day one, you witnessed our K-12 leaders talking about various nitty-gritties of restarting the school post the pandemic. The same was with the higher education sector, where we discussed about the role of artificial intelligence. We spoke about admission procedures. We spoke about the new career opportunities in front of higher education students. Similarly, the third day started off with some amazing panel discussions, some seasoned educationists talking about the role of career counselors in the 21st century scenario. Before we move ahead, we would also like to wish all the women across the sectors a very happy Women's Day. And especially when you're talking about the education sector, almost 99% of the stakeholders involved, giving the education are women. So very happy Women's Day, and we wish all the success to all the women across the world. Moving on, we have one amazing panel discussion that is talking about a very key feature where we are talking about changing trends and competency mapping of the students. We have with us Ms. Alka Kapoor, who's the guiding counselor from Ryan International School, one of the most prominent schools in Vasant Kunj, New Delhi. Then we have Ms. Swati Sharma, who's the school counselor from Manav Rachna International School, again a very reputed school when you're talking about the Delhi NCR region. And we also have with us Ms. Namrata Sinha, who's the senior clinical psychologist from Brain Wonders. Brain Wonders offers competency mapping tools across the country, in fact across the world. They are the pioneers in competency mapping skills, and we are honored to have Namrata ma'am as the moderator of this session. So welcome, ma'am, and please take this wonderful session away. I'll not take another minute. We are already running 5 minutes late, but we can still accommodate. We have a buffer of 5 to 10 minutes. During this session you can extend the session for 5 to 10 minutes. So without further ado, Namrata ma'am, please take the session away.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gulati, for such a warm introduction, not only of me, but also of the panelists. I think that introduction very nicely summarizes about how experienced and how willing our panelists are today to share their expertise and insights, which they have, gathered over the past few years in the industry. And I think you have set the right tone tone for the session. Now, firstly, what I'll do is I'll just quickly sum up the topic. So the topic for this particular panel is changing trends in competency mapping of students. And as you rightly said, that the organization that I work for, Brain Wonders, we do have a lot of experience in competency mapping for students as well as for adults. And that is why it gives me immense pleasure to work with, discuss, understand, listen, and hopefully contribute to whatever our panelists will be sharing today. It is a truth universally acknowledged that we need to keep up with the times, right? And when we talk about a young generation, which is our students, we need to ensure that they are always future ready. And this has to be done in a way that is not a stressful or a bombarding experience for them, but something which gives good results, ensuring that the present is also an enjoyable and a learning experience for a lot of the students. And that is exactly what our panelists today have been doing for a lot of time, for now. So what I'll do is I'll quickly start with the first very common and a very burning question to Dr. Swati Sharma. Why is competency mapping important in current times?
Thank you so much, ma'am. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. Good afternoon, Alka ma'am. It's an honor to be with you over here. Thank you so much for this lovely introduction, ma'am. So, as far as the question is concerned, ma'am, I feel that the times have phenomenally changed. The entire world that the child caters to has completely changed. Whether I talk in terms of his internal world or I talk in terms of the external world. Mapping should be done as you said, we have to be keeping up with the talents. And since there has been this paradigm shift in the child's world, where he's going to grow up, these adversities will just keep on changing. And for that, we need to be mapping a student's journey. I do not see it as a competency, but I look at it as a spectrum, a journey that a child will have, which is always going to be dynamic because it's going to be ever evolving, ever changing, ever assimilating. There is no end to it. So to meet up with the pace, we have to match up with the standards of today. So we are talking about competency mapping because we're talking about contextual intelligence of a child. We're talking about his survival today in the today's world, which earlier at times was very discreet and was assessed and evaluated in terms of very discrete abilities of a child. Also, if you can see as a crystallized thing, but over the years we have understood with so many advancements in research. I mean, I'm sure you would agree with me. You're working with competency tools yourself. There has been a dynamic shift from having a discrete ability to be having these different manifestations of skills which the child has to cater to in his everyday life circumstances. That's why I feel that mapping of competency is important. And let's get over with talking in terms of just discrete abilities or crystallized intelligence of the child.
Thank you so much, Dr. Swati. I think you introduced it very nicely, very crisply, and it shows that you're relating it to your own experience and the understanding that you would have developed. Following it up, I have a question from Ms. Alka Kumar. Often competency associated with students' academic grades. Do you agree or do you disagree with it?
Yeah, hi. Number one, I take this particular occasion to first acknowledge the great work that you people are doing, and also very warmly acknowledge my fellow panelists. What a wonderful opportunity it is to talk. And, it's a rare time when a teacher is almost put to judgment, and when she comes in front of a group of people and expresses herself. So yes, I am a nervous starter, but I would just say that a lovely question and a lovely topic to begin with. And I, at this juncture, would definitely quote from one of my favorite people, Elon Musk, who says that don't confuse schooling with education. I didn't go to Harvard, but people that work for me did. So that's the world that our children are entering. And, very often I will mostly talk about my experience in the school setting. So whenever I walk into a class and talk about career counseling or career mapping or talking about the difference between aptitude, simple things, these are very grassroots things in psychology, aptitude, interest, personality, just that much. And children just, shove it away, or the serious ones will trivialize it and say, ma'am, most of the famous entrepreneurs like Bill Gates, for that matter, Michael Dell, all of these are college dropouts. And I always say, well, they were not school dropouts. So I do agree that academic prowess is extremely important, but the question is how much. So one has to hone so many more skills in today's world. Particularly the past 3 years have been a revelation, where we tried to talk about competencies which were not found within the covers of the book, within the school premises, but way beyond it. And a lot of people have been able to discover those competencies within themselves. So I would certainly say that children need to be prepared to two things. One is for the world of education, and the other thing is for the world of organizations or for the world of work. And if they don't fit in, they are thrown out. So most of the time, when I talk about making choices and where children who are very academically strong, but trivialize classroom education, to them, my message always is that child, all these people were extremely committed to the one pursuit or the one passion that they picked up on. And then, advertently or inadvertently were developing skills that were, like scaffoldings to the main to the main goal that they had in mind. So I would just say, I actually spoke to about 25 of my students who were in my class today, and I just wanted to know what is the one competency that goes beyond the book. And to everybody, and to my surprise, all of them agreed. I, of course, always had it in my head, was interpersonal skills and empathy. And that was something I have seen in my organization too, that competencies are changing. The respect to what was there merely as academic knowledge is, of course, people say you could Google it. What else do you have to offer? So the world is changing. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I think if I mean, you mentioned that you were surprised by the response of the students, but I think if your students are responding like that, you have been doing something right. We have been doing something right. So, you mentioned a word in the beginning, aptitude, personality traits, right? So, this is definitely a very, very popular word. I'm not sure if everybody knows what it means in depth, but it is definitely a popular word. So, my next question to Dr. Swati Sharma would be, in 21st century, does competency relate only to aptitude and IQ?
Oh, well, ma'am, like I said, that it's a journey, right? That's how I understand this, competency word. Definitely, it's not just related to the aptitude and IQ of the child. It's much, much beyond that. I feel it's the integration of all perceptions for a child. So, and just not even EQ for that matter. I can like have so many ranges of things, little components, little pieces of information that they combine and they manifest in their own beautiful way. So it could be EQ, it could be critical thinking, it could be problem solving. I think it completely depends on the individual traits that the child has. So we cannot put it, only in terms of a relationship with the IQ or the aptitude, but we have to understand other domains where in the child's mind somehow the competencies get related with other things as well. So we cannot really have a very clear cut distinction of okay, only these set of abilities can be related to the competencies. But like I said, the whole world of the coping mechanism of a child and what strategies are individualized and personalized to his, understand how he's manipulating, facilitating, modifying, changing his environment to adapt to those circumstances, to be able to flourish the skills that he has, to be able to develop the competencies he has. I think it's the complete integration that I'll take of perceptions together to say it relates to the integration of perceptions and not just aptitude.
Very well said. Very well said. And I think, you would be the right person for continuing on the next question as well. And this, let me just put it out there. Like, this is one of the questions that often, as a leading assessment company, we work with students of all age group. And this is the question that often parents would ask. I mean, teachers understand, but parents would ask. So my question to you would be, Dr. Swati again, would be how early should competency profiling be explored for children?
I think I was waiting for such a question to be asked because I do encounter this a lot in my practice in school, everywhere, where I see all hands and teachers and parents, and everybody's going very anxious about okay, this new trend of psychometric profiling, where everybody's running out of college admissions, this and that, and preparing, but not keeping in mind that had the footprints being captured right in the development years, not in a very structured way, but if they had tagged that, little instances where the child probably looked out of the window when he was found up a tree, when he picked a certain pen which looked in a certain way. So I think it's very simple to do that. It's not difficult, and we don't have to wait until they are in grade 10 or 12 to do that. We just have to be very aware of what exactly are we doing. So the question is not about are we able to do it or not. The question is really not about that. The question is Have we found a way to tap these competencies? Have we found it? So it's not about how early, you can go as early as possible for you as student. But you should be very, very aware as an educator, as a parent, as somebody who's guiding, as a mentor, as any person who's in the child's proximity of where is his inclination going, where exactly is his interest driving him. If we are keeping track of those things, maybe we are able to trace the footprints.
Thank you, Dr. Swati. I think you use you use the word tap, right? I think that's a very apt word in context to what we are trying to discuss over here. Because when we talk about early years, or when we talk about the developmental or formative years, as we like to call it, uh, definitely, parents often think in terms of strengths and weaknesses and aligning everything to the future. Like anything that you do now should be future oriented. It's not always like that. Present definitely matters, and I think. One of my colleagues a year back, she told me that mistakes should never be made on strengths, right? And if it is something where some kind of development can happen, we should at least be aware enough to give the child that platform, that stage, that ground to explore it on. And I think that is exactly where our next question also follows up. And I think, Ms. Alka Kumar, I like you to take this one. Over the past decade, profiling has not been limited to being a one-time affair for a specific age group. How do you recommend that competency mapping be progressed as the student grows?
Um, I would normally answer most of my questions on my school-based experience, because I have seen almost a generational change through my tenure in school, which is almost 25 years. So I would, number one, I would start by explaining myself where I come from. So where the NCERT PG Diploma Guidance and Counseling ended, I shut the book and I forgot about it when I got into school, because everything was questioned by the children. We got a bunch full of children who were raring to go, who thought everything was all set because their parents were set. So all that was there. And slowly that journey changed to the fact that these very so-called precocious children started becoming children who were coming from a place which is smart, which is that they had huge banks of knowledge, and how they transformed. And I've seen in school that right from 8th to 12th, the children have changed big time. So a mischief monger in class 8th has become a sedate child who is probably into gaming, and who's probably spending the entire day in the Atal tinkering lab. And you wonder, where is this coming from? Here was a child, because you have the histories in front of you. So what I realize is that, and especially to all those children who are coming to me for LORs and all, when I get back to the classes, I tell them, start your journey from the beginning. Every time you've got on stage and compared, let's say for me, write it down that I was comparing, and without a book or a script. So I personally feel that it is never going to be a one-time affair. It's going to be several milestones in a person's life, especially somewhere around 8th, when he is assessing his own personal core skills. He's a kid still. So he might be romanticizing a career, which is like, let's say, the army, because maybe a Kargil has just happened, or he's seen a film based on army dynamics. Suddenly, by the time he's in 10th, he sees another personality, emerging within him. So to understand your particular, core skills, and then to move on to the other skills, or tapering it to the world of work and the expectations. Like today as a teacher, I'm not only talking about myself. Had I been close-minded, I wouldn't have picked up what even Zoom was. So when I was studying, there was no computer. So we all today need to be open-minded and accept the children with the entire baggage that they get with them, which means that somewhere around seventh or eighth, where they are almost eliminating their choice of languages and trying to come to, let's say, I will take German, French, or Sanskrit. From there onwards, their core skills. Am I a ratophile? Am I a person? They have to sit down, and somewhere the parents need to be engaged. I think very important role where the parent walks in and the teacher, who is an effective class teacher, should be talking. So that's one time. And then somewhere around ninth end, where they suddenly see that majority classes filling science as their stream in 11th. They need to be prepared. I don't say career counseling sessions only, but talking to people who are in the industry, who is vibing for you, so how can you go deeper in that particular field or career? So talk to them, ask them how they see of this career, what are the core personality traits that one should have. Then I think somewhere when children are ready to take their professional exams, that's class 12th, somewhere the NEET and somewhere their mock exams are telling them that I'm not good enough, or maybe I'm not ready for the world at large. I might just do science, but I'm not interested in engineering or medicine. I think somewhere also things should step in, and especially when the world is confusing us with liberal arts. The liberal arts is such a huge world suddenly, where children are now seeing that a chemistry and psychology and home science should be grouped together. Why are there these discrete classifications of humanities, commerce, and science? So I'm mostly talking about my school experience. However, a lot of children who got into the Startup India movement, or were dealing with broader co-curriculars, they always return and say, ma'am, the world is so digital that along with your core values, that is, you should develop an open-minded, empathetic, problem-solving kind of a system. Along with that, your finesse in computers, the digital, may it be marketing, may it be gaming. And there's lots of anecdotes on that. One has to hone them, and you would be otherwise thrown out of the system altogether. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think based on what you put forward, there's one observation that has come up, and maybe Dr. Swati Sharma can take that up. So, lately, many schools and counseling organizations have adopted, using a plethora of psychometric and biometric tests to map the abilities and innate traits of the child. How has this advancement happened?
Ma'am, what I have begun to realize is, also as a counselor, when we are working with other career counselors and even educators, I think education system today realizes very well that the child's mind is in the process of that constructive parts that I was talking about earlier. So it is not something that will be coming out in only one aptitude test. It doesn't happen like that. There are so many set of variations and different abilities that we have to match up to or understand in the child's case, that I feel that psychometric testing, or just aptitude testing for that matter, when it's paired with other testing, when you kind of say biometric or other psychometric motivational interest test, I think it gives us a more clearer picture of and something to fall back on, reassure with. So even if there's discrepancy in the result somewhere, for example, this is something which I think even Alka ma'am would agree that we face a lot, that it's not always consistent to what the child says that he is interested in and he's having an aptitude for. Competencies do change, competencies modify. because the child's mind is constructive. He's continuously accommodating, assimilating new information. He's dumping some things, he's picking new ones. So in all these things, just being dependent on one set of tests, I don't think that's enough. We have to, and I think I think we are very lucky to be in that generation. I feel that who's got this opportunity where we are evaluated and assessed, and we are given the freedom to be evaluated in various ways that we want to. And with the coming times and the changes that we are experiencing in the the academic domain, I'm sure in the coming times a lot of new things will also come up. Not just these, but maybe some more creative techniques will be devised for the students. So coming back to your question, it's because of the constructivism in the child. I think the realization of that is what I feel with my experience.
Thank you, Dr. Swati. I think I am in agreement with you, when you say that we can't just limit ourselves to one time or one point of assessment per se. It has to be just like how it's a constructive and progressive experience for the child, it has to be like that for us as well. And I think it's good to see, building up on the inputs that we have just summarized in the previous questions, that we do also, take care of a more holistic approach to mapping, or a whole progressive or a continuous process to map, because the child is constant. The environment and the competency may not be, but it is our responsibility to ensure that whatever is the current phase and how we align it with the current dynamics or the current trends of the world is something where I think our assessments and everything equip us to give a more clearer and a more accurate and a more holistic picture to the parent and the child. So, Alka ma'am, given your more than 25 years of experience, I think you would the perfect person to answer this particular very, very, very important query that has come up. What are the emerging differences in the competency mapping for students?
Yeah. Please let me know if I'm talking too much, or if I'm uh, drifting from the topic. But I'll just give a background of how it all started in my head as you were talking. So I remember recently in our school, we were given a form to fill about what were the gains during the pandemic. And so many of us said, oh, it's nothing. Until somebody said, I heard that you knitted a sweater. I said, well, that's a competency. And she said, no, you could sit down and concentrate. We are getting so uppity and distracted. So sitting down and doing something calmly is also a competency. And I said, okay. And then when you start writing, you realize that journaling your achievements is so very important. So one of the biggest trends that today children are doing, so every time they ask for an LOR, these days, even Indian universities, private universities ask for some self-appraisals, or when they are writing their statement of purpose. So they come back to me, and then I just tell them, write a story, or I give them a question and I say, you find a story from your own life. Let me know. I'm not going to endorse anything which is not true. And what I've realized is that what we till now did not even think as a competency is now an important part of our competence. Writing a letter for a postman on my laptop, an application, and sending it to the government also is a it's a competency which I never considered earlier. So I would say, besides writing your self-appraisals or peer evaluation, or your various scales like the behavioral observation scales, etc. Your preparation for, let's say, any of the IELTS or GRE exams, when you're writing your foreign, when you're trying to fill up your foreign admission forms, those questions, they are self-revealing. Make it a document and save it in your PDFs in your computer, and you never know when you will use it later on in life. I'm so sorry for the cuckoo bear. I did not factor it in. So that is one. The second thing that I keep telling is that constant upgradation, and whatever you are doing, like, something like ethical hacking. When children these days get very excited, that's a career, ma'am. I always say that the new dimension of any career is the legality, because the cyber world is such a vast world that you need to understand where is your boundary and what is ethical and what is not. So the legality of things, so ethics and legality competence is something which is going to come up big time in life, and one will have to think about it. Along with that, when we talk about creativity, or when we talk about critical thinking, or we talk of out of the box thinking, uh, everybody thinks that my idea is out of the box, but you get on Google and you start looking at that domain, and you have about 1,000 people within your own colony who would be doing something different. So rate yourself in a more realistic manner. Try to look at your circle of influence. Are people actually tolerating you? Are you making a difference? Because I'm just now trying to focus on the question at hand. What are the changing trends? What are you looking at? And constantly, I'm reminded of that one line which I heard from one of my friends, that 75% of the jobs that exist today would not be there for the first time learner who enters the Montessori class. So the world of work is changing. The entire your competencies, the set of, like, again, I remember Goldman Sachs, somebody who was a sociology honors. I said, what are you doing there? Isn't it a finance? And well, and she says, I think inclusivity, or whatever you call it, that is a part of the company policy. Plus, I'm bringing to the board an entire cultural perspective. So there is no end to the competencies that today will provide a plethora of jobs, a plethora of opportunities for children to earn, even if they are not attached to any organization, but they could create, the people who are independent self-learners and earners. And I think that the world is going to be ready for the person who's ready to take the plunge. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Too
I
much.
think definitely not. I think it was too little, considering that you have such clear, good insights to put forward. And I'm sure that all of us would love to reconnect later and keep having this conversation ahead, because these are the conversations that come towards that direct and execution, right? So it is good to have a summary of our experiences, a summary of our expertise, share it, and learn from each other, so that we can how do we say, so that we can help other people be better learners. Okay. So yes, I completely agree with you. When you said that, I mean, we are a career counseling firm, and we see that our research, whenever we sit down and update the trending list of top 100 careers or anything like that, so that we can recommend, align the students with the right set of careers, or the right, using their strengths or traits, we see that our list changes within like a span of 3 to 6 months. It updates so rapidly. The kind of skills we use to align towards each career changes within 2 months sometimes. And I think it is important that we understand that what kind of, how you said, the world of work, and we live in a VUCA world, as we call it, which is VUCA is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And we need to be updated and in alignment with the VUCA world, so that we can ensure that our future generation is updated and in alignment with the VUCA world. And so I have a question for both of you. Considering how dynamic today's world is, how should the parents be involved in competency building after a student is profiled? Dr. Swati, I think you also have an MBA, right? Which means I'm sure you have a lot of expertise in terms of working with adults as well. So
No,
I
we
don't
don't. I do have a master's in clinical psychology and psychosocial research, doctor of philosophy, but not an MBA. And I never also had an average fighter. because I was very different of a student that way. But yes, I think I can share my inputs on the question that you just asked. So when I see this happening in two ways. I mean, that is how we take it at school level also. And I feel this is the best way. If I talk about parents and mom, let's do it at two levels. At first level, let it be the external and the second the internal. So when the parents are involved with mentoring the children for the competencies, they need to look at what are the requirements which they have to, what are the gaps that they need to fulfill in order to get the best opportunities, counseling services, assessments, mentors, exchange programs, talking with the mentors, alumni, involvement with people who have worked in the area, but on a practical level. So I do not mean facade or a fantasy world. I mean reality of things. So whenever the child is interacting to any adult, any student when he's interacting with any adult, or if parents enable these opportunities in collaboration with universities or schools, they must ensure the practicality of matters. This is one thing that from experience I feel personally really missing in our world. Because students, when they are in school and when they discuss their ideas and what they aspire to be, what they aspire to do, they often miss the practicality. And I have to get them back to the ground because I have to tell them that it's not the fantasy that you think it is. So it's not just having an aptitude or having a competence. A parent's job is to ensure that whatever communication happens in terms of agencies or people or experts, it happens at a very practical level, as well as training the child at home, internally, psychologically preparing for the child to be embracing failure, to be embracing falling down, bouncing back, getting up, having the resilience to go after their goals. Because this is another concern I see in students that two or three failures and they get very to continue because their children are there. You can't really expect them to be so much harder than the after the task. That kind of determination very few students really have. So once their confidence gets shattered, it's very difficult to get them back to their goal, where they what they always were aspiring to do. So this is something which is very important than anything else to me. That parents' involvement should be externally motivating the experiences and taking charge that whatever is communicated to the world, it's done on a very, very practical and reality-based experience. And the second is the internal preparation of a child, which the parents must take charge of. And sometimes even let the students take charge on their own. It's okay to cry, it's okay to fail. I think these are the things we need to promote because it's I don't know what's the big deal about failing. We all fail and we will continue to fail, but we have to get up and we have to go after our goals. So the consistency parents have to ensure, the motivations that they have to ensure, not letting them break down, just focusing on them resilient is what they need to focus on. Everything will be rest assured for this. So these two things are taken care of, as per my understanding.
Thank you, Dr. Swati. I think you spoke very passionately about, a child's first and most constant, most consistent environment and the influence it has and the kind of power also it has. And I think, Salka, you will also have something to add up on this very, very important alignment. So I look forward to hearing your inputs as well.
Can I just paraphrase the question? You trying to ask about what should be the parents' role?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think the parent during the time or incidentally, there is this thing that when you're at the cusp of career decisions and deciding important things in life, you are at loggerheads with your parents. I'm so sorry to say that, but as a teenager, if you jog back your memory, somewhere around the time when you are 13, 14, 15, probably in 9th or 10th, here you are trying to decide, and when that most effective person in your life is trying to um, kind of guide you, you might just not take it. You'd be much happier to know what your friends are saying. Having said that, I've seen a lot of parents being so controlling that they do not look at the changing world the way they would when they are on a coffee table conversation. So they are liberals when they are talking to others, but when it comes to their own child, they shut their eyes to the changes or the expected the kind of accommodation that they should make for their own ward. So what happens is there are times when they are very strict with their kid, or they are overindulgent. So these two extremes do not help. You could be a democratic parent as well as a parent who gently, can tweak you and tell you that, son, you're not doing okay. And you're seeing it, like I can give an example of a, let's say, of a family business where the child says, I don't want to do family business because I don't want to work with dad. And here you can see that this child is so sharp with organizing the career mela of the school, or maybe the exhibition in the school. And he has all the skills. It's just plain rebellion that he's showing. So there are times when the third party intervention is required. But what I would say is parents need to grow. And I always feel that every parent should come to a high school and teach for maybe 6 months, and they would know that they are all, they're not all that bad at times, and not everything that they think is unpractical. So that's one aspect that we can think of. Along with that, I think parents need to be informed about current changes. They should look around them for the new careers. Like everybody is going in for a particular line of engineering. They should know that this is stagnating and this is what is emerging. So if the child is ready, and I will talk about one parent, I still remember the child was earning huge amounts in gaming, and he, I mean, it was almost like the kid had left the house. So I cannot tolerate this. Ki sara din he's sitting on the computer in front of the monitor, and I cannot. So that balance that we have to bring, the child has to be told that first, just gather all that is to be gathered at this stage, and then branch out into something. And the parents needs to be told that let's just tell him that maybe I give you 2 hours a day for doing this, the rest are mine. So this constant bargaining between parent and child, and of course being able to come from a place of knowledge, is very important. We need to understand, because with the pandemic, small businesses fell apart. Little children, one of our students has bought his father's business on a portal, developed an app, and has started delivering stuff from his father's small kirana shop. What is that if not a skill set that he developed over these 3 years? So we need to be open-minded about our kids. Having said that, sometimes it's important for children to listen, even if the parent might be a little too strict or not be very friendly. And I agree with Swati when she said that children should be prepared and parents should allow some failure experiences. Please do not live your life through your children. Allow them to fail. They will get up, and that resilience, that sense of rebounding would definitely prepare them for bigger challenges in life. And I would say that one of the most emerging, I think, domains in counseling is grief counseling. So to be able to bear with a personal grief, it could be the death of a pet, it could be loss of a pocket money, to something, loss of a parent. If only that was available, I think children would be at a very strong place to decide further in life.
Wonderfully said, I must say. And I think, as career counseling, at least what I've seen in my organizations, and thankfully, we work with a lot of school counselors as well. So, what I've seen is that parents often focus on the roots and the children often focus on the wings, and it is up to us to ensure, to let them know that, what, these two are actually connected. You both are actually going to talk about the same thing sometime. And parents often focus on the realities of life. They focus, and it's well intentioned, I must say. They focus on how safe or possible things are, but they don't think about the aspirational value or the satisfaction value that a career may have. And vice versa, children only think about the aspirational or the glamour or the satisfaction value of what they have, and they don't often understand how it is going to turn up, once they actually step into the career. And with the dynamic changing trends, I think, like I said, both the parties are very, very ill intentioned, but it's just that they have to work like a well-oiled machine, and voila, we have a success story right there. So, very importantly, Alka ma'am, do you feel that competency mapping should be limited to students, or should it be extended to the mentors as well? I think we're moving from parents to mentors now.
Absolutely. We are sorry to use something very colloquial, but we mentors can be really stuck up at times, despite the fact that we have such amazing exposure. We try to put children in boxes, and that includes not only teachers, but others also. And we do not understand things. I have seen the growth of some very, very ordinary children suddenly when they started doing, joining a club and coming up suddenly, or through, when the NEP got, I mean, we were trying to work on certain facts, like, I think it was art-based learning, and suddenly this child came up with one of the most beautiful projects that we thought. So the fact that experiential learning, you as a teacher are saying experiential learning, allow your heart to open, allow the child to express, whether it's dance, it shouldn't always be that he's making a presentation, cut, paste, copy, paste. Today when I was preparing for this, I wanted to cut, copy, paste. I wrote some lines and none of them am I able to say over here, because you need to be passionate about what you are doing and saying. And these children come up so well. I think that sometimes blogging is idiotic, but most of the time blogging is giving out signals that either I need help or I am able to give help. Seeking out is therefore something that you see in children. So I feel that we as mentors, which isn't limited to teachers, but other people, other effective members who can influence a child, we should have a more nurturant role to play. I am not against sometimes boxing somebody's ear, but of course, you need to be human enough to understand somebody else's pain. So, of course, not to be done in the school setting, but some of the mentors who are at home, they need to tell the child, so, son, you're going wrong here. So that tweaking is required. So it's like that plant. We need to snip, snap, snip sometimes, but to let them grow. Having said that, I do not just say, okay, so you're a science student, you cannot spend 1 hour reading, let's say, The Inferno, because it's such a thick book. This has happened in my own case, in my own house. I mean, but that Inferno also worked scientifically to the child who was a science student. But, as elders, we keep saying, okay, you don't do fiction, you don't see this. Try to give them what they can do rather than what they can't do. So there needs to be that kind of nurturant environment. Along with that, a good communication between mentors, which would be that, number one, be good listeners. I wanted to paraphrase your question because I thought maybe I missed out on some things that Swati was saying. Her voice was breaking in the beginning. So I did want to know this for that simple reason. So that's life. If there is a break in voice, ask the child to repeat, ask the child to talk, and you can come up with great insights So guidance is not, regulating a person or telling him this is what is to be done, but preparing him for life. So teach fishing and not give him a chapati is what they say. So teach them how to choose well. And along with that, I feel that one of the biggest competencies that would be in demand today would be not only creativity, but teamwork. Learn to be a good leader as well as a good follower. Collaboration needs to be a very strong competency if you need to succeed in life. Otherwise, you'll be constantly fighting. And along with that, I would, one message for all the teachers is constant upskilling. Be it what the CBSE does. If there is a new education policy, somebody must have thought that the earlier one is redundant. If they are saying 360 degrees assessment, somebody out there must have felt that we are not. The Wall Street Journal had to say that the Indian engineer is not ready for the world of work. He's too bookish. He's not good. He's not good in the workforce. So allow, pick up skills that go beyond just teaching that subject. Pick up skills that go beyond, let's say, strategizing in the basketball field. That is what is important. See how good a strategist is. When you see a person arranging the field in a cricket match. So, so encouraging and all that. And of course, at the end of the day, I slightly old-fashioned, though it may sound, a little self-discipline in both the mentor and the mentee is required. Don't allow yourself to be blown away with trends which seem glamorous or which are, like quicksand. Think through and think about your vision of life that you have. If you enjoy children and you're in a 25 out of 24 hours of corporate job, think about it. Can I fit in that child in my corporate job? Is it, that needs to be thought of. Yeah.
I think, when you said that we need to be collaborative, we need to know that we exist in a system. And it is something, that is, how do we say, that is pushed down our throats since, I think, standard 1 or something, when they say, what is a human being? What is the definition? We say human being is a social animal. So the emphasis on the word social, and I think we need to, go ahead with that. I think we are good on time. We have another 2 minutes left. So I'll just take up a very quick poll, if I could say, from this particular thought. A very, very popular trending word. We work from campus to corporate, and this word has, this term keeps popping up everywhere for all the right reasons. EQ, emotional quotient, or emotional intelligence, as we call it. So I like both of your thoughts on this. Is it a competency or is it a life skill? Starting with Dr. Swati.
Okay, ma'am, this is a beautiful question. I think it's the way of life. It's definitely a way of life. So you can be very empowered to express it. Sometimes not, but I don't think psychological or emotional attributes. Anybody is absolute in nature. You will never meet anybody who has zero aptitude, zero emotion, zero intelligence. It's not an absolute word, but it is a way of life. Emotions are a way of life. That is why God gave them to us, right? Otherwise, why would we experience it? There's a relevance to everything. And for me, it's definitely a way of life. That answers your question.
Thank you. And Ms. Alka Kumar, what do you feel?
Emotional quotient. I completely go by that. I completely consider it, like, I agree with Swati when she says it's a way of life. It is something that we practice. It just happens. And Of course, there would be times when you could nurture it, or you could allow yourself to learn it from others through modeling. But the biggest advantage is not only is your interpersonal and your interpersonal intelligence comes together in that emotional intelligence, but it also prepares you to respond and not to react. I've seen people reacting, angry people who, when they sit down, they regret that moment. And that's where one needs to be emotionally intelligent, because if you cannot bring up people around you, you are no good a leader. I mean, everybody should, a lot of time, almost at the fag end of my career, people do ask me that, ma'am, how many people have you treated? Well, number one, counseling, you cannot talk about how many, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number two, you cannot wear them like your trophies. Number three, when you say, I say that my personality should be nurturant enough for the other person to feel relaxed, and not feel that here is a chess game where checkmate is going to happen any point of time. And what's wrong if somebody puts me down for a minute? It really doesn't matter. So that just comes with age, but I've mellowed down with age. But even when I was young, I realized that the power dynamics is something which should come only because you have the ability, not because of anything else. Yeah, so that needs to be trained. When a child comes and he says it's a matter of right, that I will not write the offline exam, but I should be getting a online exam, then, I mean, that's not right. You haven't even thought about what you're saying. So somebody needs to be a good negotiator. That is, I think, a very important part of a person who is high on emotional intelligence. He works and he takes his team forward along with him. He's not the leader of the pack and everybody is just following it. I mean, he could be charismatic, he could be smart, he could be democratic, he could be, but largely he is to lead by example. And that is why we must keep an even, I shouldn't even use the word must over here. It should be natural for us to make people feel that they are important when we are talking to them. So that is the skill of a person who's high on interpersonal abilities. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think that's a very, very nice, comforting, but a thought-provoking note to end today's panel discussion on. Thank you, Alka ma'am, for bringing forward your observations, your work with students. I think all of us have benefited immensely from the experience that you have accumulated over the years. And Dr. Swati, I think like how you said, that your research and your intellectual insights have very, very, very clearly shown throughout the panel discussion. And I look forward to reconnecting with you all. Like I said, taking the discussion ahead and ensuring that it does not remain a discussion. It is something that we implement in our own practices, and of course empower others to do the very, very same. Over to you, Mr. Gulati.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I think it was such a wonderful and aptly said, a thought-provoking, panel discussion. And I'm sure our viewers would have enjoyed the same, listening to all you wonderful counselors who have been guiding students throughout. Thank you so much for this amazing panel. And once again, we would, from the complete team of Universal Mentors Association, we would love to wish you all a very happy Women's Day. And thank you for this amazing, amazing panel. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you, Namrata. You were a very good moderator. Thanks.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Trying to learn